Thank you very much, Mr. Hosey. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and in common with colleagues, I would like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Dartford, for calling what I think is a very important debate. And I'd also like to thank my honourable friend, the member for Runnymede and Weybridge, because he's right. This is an interest that I've taken a deep interest in the Ultra Low Emission Zone expansion for some period of time, and that is because there are a number of big problems with this policy. The first is that Sadiq Khan doesn't have a mandate for it. He claims that ULEZ expansion is absolutely essential to tackle air pollution, and we heard his briefing being faithfully read out by the honourable member for Swansea West and the honourable member for Putney. But given that he was only re-elected to City Hall last year, you would imagine, wouldn't you, Mr. Hosey, that this would feature very prominently in his manifesto. But it doesn't. This is the 100-page manifesto that Sadiq Khan went to the polls on, and on one paragraph on page 55, it mentions the Ultra Low Emission Zone. But that was specifically pertaining to the extension to the North and South Circular in October 2021, which he had already announced. There is no mention whatever of expanding the boundary to the outer part of Greater London. And when he decided in May of this year that he was going to push ahead with this, although it wasn't a direct quote, the Evening Standard article that covered the announcement said, on Friday morning, Sadiq Khan insisted that he would not press ahead with the plans if the public overwhelmingly rejected them during the public consultation. The same article quoted the Mayor directly as saying, it's a genuine consultation, as were the previous two consultations in relation to the Central London Ultra Low Emission Zone and the expansion. I hope Londoners who care about the health of their families will respond. And they did, in large numbers. But the Mayor initially refused to release the results of that consultation, and eventually, after public pressure on the 25th of November, the results were released, and they revealed the following. 60% of those who responded to the consultation opposed the Sadiq Khan's ULEZ expansion to Outer London. And that figure increases to 68% when you include the organised responses that the member for Swansea West mentioned earlier on. 70% of Outer London residents opposed the expansion, and 80% of those who work in Outer London were also opposed. So this policy has no mandate, and it has no public support. And it turns out it's not about air quality either, contrary again to the propaganda that was read out by the members opposite, which comes directly from the briefing sent by the Mayor of London. This is not some hatchet job. This is the Mayor's own integrated impact assessment that I quoted from earlier on. I gave one example. There are many where it uses phrases like negligible to minor in terms of the impact that it would have on air quality. So there's no mandate, there's no public support, and it's not really about air quality. The impact is negligible. So why is the Mayor of London so interested in ULEZ expansion, and why is he rushing it? Well, the answer, Mr. Hosey, is as old as time. It's about money. This is a cash grab, pure and simple. According to TfL's own figures, it expects the £12.50 charge to hit 160,000 cars and 42,000 vans per day. In monetary terms, that's about £2.5 million per day. It's a big cash injection into the Mayor's coffers. There's a question about timing. Each of the previous ULEZs, when they were introduced, the inner one and the outer one, there were years for people to prepare. In this case, there is 9 months to prepare. The average family cannot save up to buy a car that quickly, especially when household bills are rising, and we know that they are. Small businesses and charities may be forced to replace one vehicle or even a fleet that they had banked on being able to use for many years to come. So who gets hit? Well, the Mayor of London doesn't seem to understand who will be picking up the bill for his policies. It's not wealthy Londoners. It's ordinary working people, those on the poor end of the socioeconomic spectrum, who are less likely to be able to upgrade their car, who are more likely to own an older vehicle. Now, there is a myth that Mayor Khan attempts to spread around that low-income Londoners do not own cars or drive in Greater London, and that is categorically false. And what's more, he knows that. This is a report produced by Transport for London in 2019 called Travel in London. In it, Transport for London's own analysis shows that 50% of Outer London households earning as little as £10,000 own a car, and car ownership rockets to in excess of 70% for those earning upwards of £20,000. According to TfL's own impact assessment, low-income Londoners are more likely to own non-compliant vehicles. So this is not a tax on wealthy drivers, but on poorer people who simply cannot afford to buy a new vehicle. In my own constituency, where we don't have tubes, We don't have trams. We have trains that go into central London, and we have private vehicles. 83% of Orpington households own a car, meaning that a great number of my constituents could be liable to pay this charge. Many of my constituents, as we heard from my honourable friend, the member for Rice Northern and Pinner, use their car every day to go to work, to the shops, to visit family and friends. And under the Mayor's plan, they face potentially disastrous annual bill of £4,500. We heard from other members about the impact on public services. Over half of Greater London's police officers and firefighters and around a fifth of the workers in my local NHS trust come into Greater London from outside. They are more reliant on their cars, especially those who work in Outer London and especially those who work on shift work. For some on a night shift, they face a double whammy of a £12.50 charge driving to work and then a £12.50 charge after midnight when they drive home. So it could cost them £25 per shift to go and do their work. But it will also impact on businesses in Outer London. Many people drive in from Kent to shop in Pettswood, in my constituency, but TfL estimates that 8% have non-compliant vehicles. Rather than paying £12.50 a time, many of those will simply choose to shop and visit elsewhere, depriving London's high streets of customers. But for the drivers, both in London and those who travel from outside to work, shop or visit outer boroughs, many are unaware that they may face an even higher bill. We heard from my honourable friend, the member for Dartford, about the increase in the level of fines, up to £180. He's just hiked it from 130 to 160, and he's going to go further from January next year. It's going to go up to 180. So if you cross into Greater London, perhaps unaware of the boundary, unaware of the existence of the charge, or that your vehicle is not compliant, you will unknowingly rack up a cripplingly high bill, and potentially as many as 12,000 cars and vans a day may be hit by a fine. The RAC estimate that Transport for London could raise £260 million a year by imposing these penalties. And to put that into context, one insurance firm, Churchill Insurance, estimated that the total parking fines raised by every council in the country combined would come up at £250 million, £10 million lower than what Transport for London will make with this in the first year. But in fact, of course, TfL could earn significantly more than that, because if every driver pays within 14 days, reducing the penalty from £180 to £90, that could raise £390 million for Transport for London every year. Mr Hosey, the Mayor of London has not been a success in office. The Metropolitan Police and the London Fire Brigade are both in special measures. Violent crime reached record highs and it has not abated. He is not on target to deliver enough affordable homes, despite what he himself boasted about as being the largest settlement from central government on record. Crossrail was years late and billions of pounds over budget, with billions of pounds more lost in fares that were never raised. I'm just coming to my closing my remarks, Mr. Hosey.
Back onto low emission zones.
Indeed I am. So the point I'm trying to make, Mr Hosey, is that Sadiq Khan is looking for something he can point to and claim as his. Now, leaving aside that the fact that the ultra low emission zone was not even his idea, it was conceived and the preparatory work was done under Boris Johnson, he has adopted the ULEZ as his big idea. But the expansion of the ultra low emission zone to outer London has no mandate. It has no popular support. It will do almost nothing for air quality. It will be economically damaging and it will hit the poorest hardest, damaging those, not just those who live in outer London, but millions more who live outside Greater London. It is an appalling and unjust policy and it should be scrapped.